Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Barker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to the VRRC and the VRRC.
Oh,
good start.
Good start.
We are ready to go racing for our third round of the VRRC Touring Car European Tour. Season 5 of Touring Car Racing here at the VRRC. Myself and Jack Oliphant are delighted to be back with you to talk through all of the action here on the VRRC. 2 weeks of racing down already, Jack, and we arrive now at one of my all-time favourite circuits, Mugello. I feel like it's getting a lot more love these days from four-wheeled motorsport enthusiasts. Always was a bit of a mecca for motorbike fans due to its rich history in MotoGP racing and whatnot, but I do feel like the visit from the Formula One World Championship here a few years ago really put a few more eyes on what is truly a spectacular circuit.
It is wicked, to be honest. I remember the sort of first time I feel like it really got known in the public domain, you're right, is the Formula One. And it's that video, I think, of George Russell where he was basically talking through a lap. A bit like Lewis's track guide. If anybody thinks Lewis was quite impressive doing the track guides, George Russell did it live in a Formula One car. It's incredible. But it looks like a stunning track to drive in real life. It's one of those tracks where I do wish that I got to do it. But in the sim, it's as close as we're going to get. And I think these drivers like it as well because we keep coming back here whenever we do a European tour.
Indeed so, although in the sim it is a little more gentle on those old neck muscles because there are lots of long high-speed corners, undulations, direction changes. It really does have a little bit of everything, this place, and we're really looking forward to seeing exactly how the drivers will fare. Now, a week ago we were at another bit of a hidden gem of a racetrack in the Brno circuit in the Czech Republic, and that hosted our third and fourth rounds of the championship. Some really great racing, actually, really close bumper-to-bumper stuff, and it produced a fantastic pair of results for Jack Smith. Our championship leader early doors had a strong opening week at Magny-Cours with a win and a third place. Last time at Brno, things got even better. He won both races, won the first one from pole position. He did lose the fastest lap point, I seem to recall, right at the end of the race, but almost a maximum points haul. And he then went from the very back in race number 2 to win in that one as well. It was a podium apiece for Oliver Gibson and for Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Elliot Dalton-Ayres ending up the third highest scoring driver of the week, whilst Nicky Taylor, who had not had the best of starts to the season, actually still hasn't had a podium finish, but he did come out of the previous round with a pair of fourth places and therefore was the third highest point scorer. Jack Smith was given the driver of the round for, well, quite frankly, Jack, sheer dominance, the likes of which really we haven't seen before.
Well, yeah, it's been a very long time if we have it. Jack Smith was fantastic, to be honest. And as I said, almost the most exciting thing about his round was the fact that he didn't get that fastest lap. Yes. That was the biggest time I ever got my heart up about it, and it's because it got it taken away from him by Oliver Gibson, his brother, on the final lap. But he was stunning, to be honest, and that's why he does hold the championship lead. And so it comes as no surprise to anybody, given the fact that we've been going on about him so much. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is currently in second place, but it's a fair old gap between the two of them. Oliver Gibson 1 point behind Elliot Dalton-Ayres in third place. Nicky Taylor, Josh Martin round out the top 5. Jordan Taylor, Andy Carroll, Fabrizio Torri, the new driver to the championship. Andy Dorman and Kyle Felvers round out the top 10. But if we ignore Jack Smith, Andy, it's a very, very tight championship, isn't it? I mean, I think most people will start ignoring Jack Smith in a bit, but the fight for second is very interesting.
To be fair, we sort of ignored him at Brno because he was so far up the road. Even in the reverse grid race, ended up winning by a country mile. So we haven't seen actually an awful lot of our championship leader. But you're right, it is very tight for second on back. And a little bit of hope, maybe, for some of those chasing him this week, because there have been some balance of performance adjustments behind the scenes, which are basically supposed to peg back the BMW ever so slightly. And this was with the consultation of the BMW drivers, Jack Smith included. And as far as I know, there's not really been too much pushback on that. So those cars hopefully now won't be seen to have such a big advantage. And it might just give some of the other drivers half an opportunity to start closing down that points deficit, which, by the way, is not a fully genuine one because we're not yet taking into account drop scores. So once we get about halfway through the season, we'll really then start to see exactly what the points picture is. Well, at the end of the season, Jack Smith will be hoping that he can retain a good points advantage. If he can, then he will be taking our top prize from this championship, which, as ever here at the VRRC, is not done by halves. It is a Cammus Simulation sim racing wheel, direct drive wheel, I believe, with a winner's trophy. There's also then, for the second place driver, an Aegon by AOC gaming monitor with a racing seat, courtesy of Riggs for our third placed driver. The driver in fourth and fifth place, they will both receive some VRRC clothing, whilst there is also the driver of the round awarded by us, with perhaps suggestions from you at home who will win the jacket and the driver of the round medal. Then there's the fan of the round, and that is for you at home or wherever you might be watching the broadcast. If you interact in the YouTube chat and you make us laugh, or you perhaps point out something interesting that we missed, then you may well be receiving the NGK bobble hat as the recipient of the Fan of the Round award at the end of the night. There's also then a secondary Fan of the Round award, which is done by random draw. You have to subscribe to the channel, though, in order to be eligible for that. If you subscribe, then you're entered into the draw, and you may well be the winner there as well. Right then, that was a lot of words. Let's enjoy now a lot of driving action by taking a ride alongside our resident expert, Lewis Edwards, around the Mugello circuit to familiarise yourself with it before qualifying gets underway in just a few minutes.
Hello and welcome to Mugello. I'm Lewis Edwards and I'll be taking you around my favourite track on the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship Season 5 calendar. There's a very long run up towards San Donato. I'm braking at the 100 metre board on the left hand side of the track, going down into third gear. I'm sacrificing the exit of turn 1 quite a bit in order to be in the best position on track for the turns 2 and 3 chicane, which are approaching now. Again, sacrificing the exit of turn 2 so that I can get a really good run through turn 3. We can take that flat out without any hybrid usage quite comfortably. Turns 4 and 5 require a similar approach, with slightly less sacrifice made for the left-hander of 4 there. Now approaching turns 6 and 7 already. That requires, again, a similar approach, but you can really send the speed through 6 using the apex curb for rotation and to open up turn 7. This section is all about momentum. The tyres will be complaining a lot through Arrabbiata 1 and 2, which we're going through now. For Arrabbiata 2, I take an earlier apex and use this apex curb for rotation. And now turn 10 creeps up on you quite a lot here, so really vital to have a good braking marker for here. Again, just all about keeping the momentum up through the chicane like it is through pretty much all of the chicanes around this Mugello circuit. We're approaching turn 12 now. It's a really difficult downhill braking zone, and you're starting to tip the car in towards the apex, so just important to keep it nice and stable through here. Again, taking a short shift on the exit there just to keep that stability going. For 13 and 14, you just don't want to take too much curb and upset the car any more than I did through there. That was right on the limit. And we're now approaching the final corner, and the exit is the sole focus here. It's really important to get the best exit possible as we're going down the longest straight on the calendar, one of the longest in world motorsport, in fact, and we're heading up towards the line, just about getting a slipstream and using the hybrid, and that completes a lap of Mugello.
Well, welcome back, everyone, then, to Mugello. And as we just saw there, it is a real driver circuit, one that rewards commitment. But I think really, Jack, more than commitment, smoothness, really important here. Lots of long corners and lots of corners that lead sort of directly into another and then another and then another. And if you get it wrong at the start of that sequence of corners, then you're never really going to have a chance to recover.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult. There's sort of one line, isn't there? And I know that sort of sounds obvious because there's only ever one racing line, really, for a track. But especially this one, it's a little bit narrow. It's quite undulating. And I think we even had Rich, who obviously got a podium, come in last week and said that Bruno only had one line, whereas we spent the entire evening saying, oh, you can take a variety of lines through this corner. And he just came in and proved us completely wrong. So, but I do think that if you go to try and overtake someone here, you really do have to be 100% committed. The move has to be done. It has to be done cleanly. Otherwise, you're both going to screw yourselves over. That's the slight risk with this circuit. I think it's fantastic to drive, but I think in terms of overtaking each other, you do it at the wrong place of the track, it can all of a sudden you lose all the momentum and the people just in front of you can drive off into the distance. So I think that fight for second and third might cause a runaway winner here.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't bet against that. There is the one obvious place, isn't there, to overtake, which is at the end of the long pit straight, which isn't actually a straight. It's got sort of a long sweeping chicane in it, which is easily flat out, but then a big downhill braking zone into that first corner, especially with the assistance of some hybrid down there, Jack. That should be a fairly easy place to pass. If you've got hybrid and the car ahead of you hasn't, you should be able to catch, pull alongside, clear, and pull back in front of them, such is the length of that straight. But if you then subsequently end up side by side coming out of turn one, that's where things get a little bit more tricky, because unlike Bruno, where, yes, there may be one quick line, but there was at least plenty of space to run wheel to wheel through pretty much any corner that took your fancy. Here at Mugello, you really are sort of restricted, aren't you? Very difficult to go side by side through much of the lap without delaying yourselves an awful lot and sort of bunching everything back up. So, yeah, interesting circuit this, most definitely, and one where qualifying will be important. It's a long lap as well, isn't it? So, as we'll see for many of the venues that we race at this season, given the fact that the series is visiting this season, I should say, Formula One grade circuits in Europe. Lots of them tend to be an awful lot longer, and so therefore qualifying is going to be a very, very important session as and when we get into it. I think there's some tech problems going on behind the scenes. We will hopefully advance into qualifying very shortly, and then we will have our 2 20-minute races still to come later on. And at the start of those races, Jack, another opportunity for things to get mixed up, because it's a long run into that first corner, even from a standing start.
Yeah, and people will be using hybrids off the line. They might be using hybrids going into the corner. I think it's long enough that we actually will get to the... if you start the hybrid, as you set off, as the lights go green, the hybrid will probably run out by the time you get to the first corner. It's that long. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And unlike Bruno, we're not seeing... Well, there was about 5 straights last week, wasn't there, where they could use a hybrid and it would probably click off by the time they get to the next corner. This time, there is only one opportunity, but on that long straight, as you said, there's probably about 3 chances of initiating it, depending on how you want your timing, basically. Yeah, I think there is a few little bits and technical gremlins potentially happening behind the scene, but that does give us the opportunity, Andy, to talk about the VRRC and the sort of behind the scenes. You've already mentioned, for instance, when we were talking about the prizes, the fact that you can win an NGK hat if you are the fan of the round, and I know you guys in the YouTube chat have already been talking about it. Dave has been giving tips, I can see, about how to win it, since he was the recipient last week. I believe Adrian Felvis was the person who won it in the first week. So, yeah, we like to share it around a little bit here. So don't worry, Dave won't win it every week. You guys can have your opportunities as well. But there is that other subscriber. You have to be a subscriber and be entertaining in the YouTube chat. And then there is also the other random fan draw, where if you are just a random subscriber, you might have subscribed 3 years ago and not even remembered to untick the box, but they're still in a chance of winning an NGK hat. So please do make sure you are subscribed for the best opportunity to come away with a prize just for sitting and enjoying some great racing. It's quite nice that we've brought that in for this season, isn't it? Rather than just the driver of the round, because that was getting a little bit repetitive, Andy. It's quite nice that we have something else that we can appreciate everybody who's who's sort of fed back to us.
Yeah, no, indeed so. We really like getting the viewers at home involved in the broadcast because we do it for you, really. The drivers enjoy racing, but they could race quite happily without a broadcast to watch. They can't watch it live after all because they're a little bit busy. But for the friends and family at home who do want to cheer on whoever their driver may be, or, you know, throw abuse at them through the YouTube chat, whichever takes your fancy, then that is what we're here for, really. Incidentally, we do have at the VRRC already driver tuition and driver coaching sessions that you can sign up for. Rumour has it that Dave is setting up a fan of the round tuition session. He's going to give you all tips on how best to put yourself in contention for a prize at the end of each week. So please do direct message Dave, and I'm sure he'll be able to help you out.
Yeah, no, he seems to be throwing the tips out already, doesn't he? Don't give them all away for free, Dave. You know, you want to be earning a bit of money out of that one. Paul Laramie is the driver that we're currently focusing on, as we do actually have cars on track now, Andy, which is a bit of a relief, isn't it? I thought we'd have to ramble on all about salesmen of the VRRC and try and sell as much as we can for the next 20 minutes, but it looks like we've actually got something entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure Rich Hayden wouldn't have been averse to that, but you're absolutely right. We do have cars out on circuit, qualifying commencing then, and it looks as though Paul Laramie was hot out of the blocks, first out of the pit lane, and he therefore will be the first to come out of the final corner and begin a flying lap around the Mugello circuit, up across the timing line he's about to go then, and on this long run down towards the first corner, San Donato by far the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit, and an opportunity, as we've said, in the race to use the hybrid, but no hybrid available during qualifying, and that is why I think, Jack, in the background, I caught a glimpse of basically everybody else in a long line, because if they all think that the slipstream down that pit straight is beneficial, then they may well choose to try and work with a few other people, certainly people of a similar pace to them, to try and help them, because you can't use that hybrid to increase your straight line speed, but you can use the laws of physics.
You can indeed, and there's not much of a downforce factor for the cornering ability of these cars. It's all mechanical grip pretty much, so I don't think there's much risk of washing through or understeering in the corners. There's probably a little bit. Lewis Edwards is probably going to correct me now in my ears, but I think you don't run too much risk, so you have a lot of benefit from trying to get into the slipstream of the drivers ahead of them, and then obviously just trying to hook the rest of the lap. But if you do have a person in front of you, sometimes it's quite nice to sort of try and catch someone. We always have that cliche in racing, don't we, Andy, that it's easier to catch than to be caught, and that's the same in qualifying here. Paul Laramie is the one who's taken the reins and decided to be, have fresh air in front of him, but everybody else has that objective to chase, has that target on the back of Paul Laramie's car that they can brake just a little bit later, push the car a little bit harder than he is.
Yeah, exactly so, although he breaks a little bit too late himself there, going into turn 12. That was Corantaio, and then into the left-right flick here at Biondetti 1 and 2, where Valentino Rossi famously broke his leg a number of years ago, a terrifying number of years ago, actually now. That was probably getting on for a decade ago. Then into the... Oh, wow, Lewis has really upset me now. It was 12 years ago, apparently. That is... not good news. Right, we'll move on swiftly out of the final corner, turn 15, and accelerating hard up the hill towards the line. Let's see what the benchmark time is going to be then from Paul Laramie, who will be the first to register a lap time in the qualifying session. Across the timing line he goes now, and it's a 154.905. Let's wait and see whether anyone else can beat him. The train behind comes, and yeah, look at that. They're already a whole second quicker.
Yeah, no, Nicky Taylor jumped straight to the top, and the BMWs, as we said, expecting them to be a little bit slower. Everybody else to be slightly more competitive with them. So we don't expect... Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jack Smith at the top, but with the maximum amount of kilos on board, a slightly more bopped rear-wheel drive is going to be a struggle around this circuit. I think Nicky Taylor looks like a favourite before... well, who's that actually? Joel Lask, isn't it? Who throws it off the circuit and now has to get out of the way of everybody, has to throw away that lap and charge it all back up again as we cut to Oliver Gibson in one of the BMWs, of course. Oliver Gibson, not quite as dominant as Jack Smith, but has shown good pace, hasn't he? I think he's qualified second twice now, Andy, in consecutive weeks. It's going to be a bit of a tougher task this time.
Yes, I think you are right, actually. Oliver Gibson, second place in both qualifying sessions so far, and also finished second in the first race a week ago at Brno as well, but currently sits sixth place. It is Fabrizio Torri who is fastest in the qualifying session at the moment. as you'd sort of expect, I guess. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that Fabrizio, if he doesn't live in Italy, is certainly of Italian heritage. That's where we find out he's from Sunderland or something, but certainly with a name like that, ought to go well around Mugello, and he's doing so. He's fractionally quicker than Jack Smith, who came through only a few seconds ago. So Jack Smith seemingly quite detached from the rest of the group, but it's not slowing him down. He's only about 0.03 of a second slower than the early benchmark time.
I would love it if Fabrizio is just one of those drivers that, you know, changed their name officially, like that the Fun Cup drivers, that just to catch you out, Andy. Tarquini or whatever. That's it. Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? Great sense of humour. But I do believe that he is of Italian heritage. Well, at least that's what Lewis has said as well. So yeah, but Oliver Gibson here rotating quite well, but just been overtaken by Craig Curtis as My screen just froze and I got very confused then all of a sudden, Andy.
It's all good. It's moving again for me now. Is it for you?
Yes, it is. Yes,
that's good news.
All of a sudden. Yeah. I was worried that I missed something then or something.
No. Only Oliver Gibson perfectly negotiating the final corner and setting an improved lap time and actually further tightening things at the front now because, well, I was going to say the top three were covered by less than 1/10 of a second, but actually Fabrizio Torri's gone quicker again now. He's done a 1:53.683. Jack Smith, though, is on 2 personal best sectors at the moment. Here he is, heading through the left-right at Biondetti and down to the final turn then, turn 15, and back towards the end of a lap. Jack Smith, then the championship leader, 3 times a winner already this season, out of the first 4 races of the season. And can he now claim his 3rd pole position in a row? We're nearly halfway through the qualifying session already. Jack Smith accelerates towards the line. Personal best in sectors 1 and 2, and it is a new fastest time, but look at that, only just quicker than Fabrizio Torri. 4 1/1000ths of a second, but it is Jack Smith back to the top.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe my heart was racing for the last 2 rounds whenever we saw Jack Smith's car, but I think it's just having PTSD from a BMW with the number 15 on it. It just, doesn't quite sit right with me. I always get nervous watching it. Joel Lask, well, he went off the circuit a lap ago or so, and now he's parked on the side. He gets going again, but it's really not going his way, is it? I've heard that he's not quite agreeing with the car. He's not quite enjoying his racing as much as he has done in previous championships, but he's in 6th place. He's got some half-decent results under his belt. I believe he got a podium in, I think it was race 2 at round 1, but I think it's just not quite clicking with him this time. I don't know how much practice he's done, Joel Lask, but even if you have raced here at Mugello a couple of times, you have to have it so hooked up, don't you, through all of these various chicanes and up and over the undulations. You really do need to be at 1 with the car to get the best time out of it.
Yeah, and I do believe there has been a bit of a lack of practice over the first couple of rounds. He's gained a lot of weight as well as after the opening round of the season at Magny-Cours, where he did manage to score quite well through the reversed grid race more than anything else, and actually looks a bit more competitive here. I know he's had an interesting session as he bails from the pit lane now for a fresh set of tyres, but he is still 6th fastest, which is would be by far his best qualifying effort of the season. Andy Carroll, though, has also perhaps just put in a lap that could be his best qualifying effort so far. 4th quickest for Andy in the Hyundai, so it's BMW leading the way at the moment still, but the Hyundai's looking pretty competitive, aren't they, with Fabrizio Torri, Andy Carroll, Joel Lask, Carl Felvis all inside that top 10 in Hyundais. Nicky Taylor just jumped into 5th place earlier on as well in his Honda Civic. But good to see Andy Carroll going well. And Andy, we know he's always a bit of a dark horse in front-wheel drive touring cars, and he does seem to be clicking with Mugello.
We do seem to be wait every so often, don't we? When touring cars comes around, we're just waiting for the one round where Andy Carroll just turns it on out of nowhere, sort of thing. It's like, oh right, there he is, yeah, he's back again, and then all of a sudden we have to wait another season. But is that Joel Lask again going off this? That was Reece Bell, apparently. Yeah, but it's nice to see Andy right at the sharp end on pure pace as well. With 5 minutes left to go, it's not like anybody out there hasn't set a representative time at all. A couple of drivers have come in, put new tyres on and going back out, maybe trying to get into the rhythm of the circuit. Maybe it's getting a little bit hotter or cooler. Maybe the track's getting a bit quicker. But ultimately, we're not seeing that many green times come up in the sectors just yet. So Andy Carroll is doing a great job. Nicky Taylor has gone maybe slightly quicker in Sector 2. Chris Blakey's put a green Sector 1 in. But apart from that, we're not seeing much movement here, Andy.
No, because I think a lot of cars have just been in the pit lane and therefore are completing out laps now. Because one thing we have heard is that it's very hot out there. The track temperature starting very high at the beginning of the evening, and then it slowly starts to cool down, we believe, as we move into race 2. That's what the weather forecast says. We don't know precisely what the weather's going to do, because that would be very unrealistic. In fact, even having a vague idea of what the weather's going to do, you could say is a bit unrealistic, but we do know roughly that it's going to cool down slightly later on. But in these hot conditions, the front-wheel drive cars in particular, really chewing up that left front tyre, so they'll only realistically get 1 or 2 fast laps before they then have to bail for the pit lane. Although Nicky Taylor has just improved. He's gone third now, just about within 1/10 of a second of the top 2 times. There is Nicky in the Honda, who put in a couple of personal best sectors on his previous lap, but now he's going to have to do this lap into the pit lane and might just have time to complete an out lap and get 1 lap in at the end of the session. So that might be the best we see from Nicky. We'll have to wait and see whether the Honda driver is going to be able to go quicker, or indeed have time to go quicker again. In the closing stages of the qualifying session, Joel Lask is still sat in the pit lane, perhaps making some small adjustments before he goes for one more Banzai run. He's been sort of sat in 6th place for most of the session, but it is Jack Smith at the top. Fabrizio Torri, though, who is back out on track now, has just done a personal best in Sector 1, so Fabrizio Torri gunning for his maiden pole position here with the VRRC Jack, and so far on this lap, looks as though he might be able to challenge another good second sector.
Yeah, he's about 3 or 4 tenths up, actually, isn't he? And that would take him about 2 or 3 tenths above Jack Smith, which would be an extremely impressive feat. It's nice to see that we got BMW, Hyundai, Honda as the top 3 as well. A much better variety of cars dominating the front end of the grid. But as they come round to the final couple of corners, Fabrizio Torri is looking like a man on a bit of a mission. From good news story down to the other end, it would say. I was about to say Josh Martin was plumb dead last. He's just moved himself up to 15th place. But Josh Martin's qualifying woes seem to continue, don't they, Andy? You probably got the stats better than I do, but it doesn't seem to be going particularly well this season for him in terms of qualifying. But Fabrizio Torri has seemed to turn up here at Mugello. Jack Smith's just gone green, so it might be a short-lived celebration if Torri gets across the line and does see out this pole position time. He gets it under his belt to 1 minute 53.671. That's only 8 thousandths of a second quicker than Jack Smith, who, as I said, is putting some good times together now, as Carl Felvers jumps himself up to 4th position, and the times are starting to tumble.
They are, but not as much as I expected there, really, from Fabrizio, because at one point, as we saw, he was 3 or 4 tenths up, and now he ends up just 8 thousandths up on Jack Smith, who's turning his way now through Biondetti 1 and 2, and towards the end of the lap. Now, the middle sector was nothing special. I think he's backed off, actually, hasn't he? Yeah, Jack Smith's backed off. He's going to have time for one more lap. Just ducks around the outside of one of the Toyotas there, takes a wide line into the last corner to try and hook up that late apex, carry the speed up the hill, and this is now going to be the final chance. But did that bad middle sector and the aborted lap maybe save Fabrizio Torri? Has Jack Smith got enough tyre life underneath him now to try and improve? He doesn't need to find much, 8 thousandths of a second. It's blink of the eye stuff, but putting that together over a lap that's nearly 2 minutes in length, Jack, that is the tricky bit.
It is indeed. That final corner was quite nice. He did carry a little extra speed into turn 1. He seems to be translating that. I think it's about even. It's going to be a very difficult next 2 minutes for Jack Smith, but we know if any driver on the grid can do it, it is him. Andy Dorman, I want to give a bit of a shout out to as well, as he's just jumped up above Andy Carroll into 6th position. Joel Lask is in the pits. He's had a qualifying that isn't necessarily terrible in comparison to his first 2 rounds, but it isn't exactly what we're used to seeing him, especially in the touring cars. Josh Martin's on a green sector 1 as well. I'm sure Dave in the YouTube chat will be absolutely delighted to hear. Reese Bell is got a green sector 1 as well. I believe he isn't. Is Reese covering for Stuart Vickers, I believe, tonight as well? Yes, so nice to see Reese back out there on the VRRC grid. Nicky Taylor's just put in another time, but it's nowhere near quick enough, and Jack Smith isn't quicker through sector 1.
No, he was starting to catch back up, but then he carried a bit too much speed through Arrabbiata 2, ran wide on the exit. He's now 8 tenths down, so I think that Jack Smith is going to have to settle for a truly disastrous second fastest in the session. And actually, the goalposts have moved again now, because Torri has just done a 53.545. That's impressive on a second flying lap on that set of tyres. So the second lap does have potential anyway to still be a quick one, and that now puts him just over a tenth clear of Jack Smith. Josh Martin, meanwhile, making his way through. Josh did have a bad qualifying effort at Magny Coeur, but he was third a week ago at Brno in qualifying. So Josh Martin's qualifying efforts have been up and down, shall we say. And sadly, we seem to be on a bit of a downward curve in this particular qualifying session. He exits the final turn, heads to the timing line, and let's see what he's going to do. 14th place at the moment for Josh Martin. The checkered flag is out. This is the conclusion of his qualifying session, and he moves up slightly anyway into 11th place. So he can race from there, but he's not going to be as close to the pointy end of the grid as he would have liked to be, that's for sure. So Josh Martin then will settle for 11th. That is Paul Laramie coming in. He's 14th fastest right now. Not a huge amount of improved sectors coming in, although Nicky Taylor, personal best sector 1 and then a solid sector 2. And actually, he's coming back again now in the third sector. So Nicky Taylor could be one to watch. Here he comes then through Biondetti 1 and 2 towards the final turn. Can he, perhaps, Jack, move on to the front row?
Well, that's what he's hoping, isn't it? As you said, a green sector 1 is sector 2, means he's come out about even, but what can he do through the final couple of corners? He's not quite used all the track there, has he? I don't think it's quite the run that he was hoping for. He's going to just about break even here, Nicky Taylor. Not going to be the pole position dream, but it's still going to be the second row of the grid for Nicky Taylor. There we go, into third place, and he's got Carl Phelps, his good mate, alongside him as well. So those two can certainly start hunting down the championship newcomer Fabrizio Torri and the championship leader Jack Smith. Here's a Lock Iyengar in the 4th BMW, all the way down in, I believe that is a long way down, 17th place. It was a bit pixelated for me there, yeah, but 17th place, respelling 16th. So as all the checkered flags have come out, it's about that time that we go to a very short advert break until we have a chat to, well, for the first time, a new driver in the pole position interview. It'll be Fabrizio Torri just after this.
Welcome back, everyone, to Mugello, where qualifying has just been completed for the VRRC Touring Car Championship, and we have a new name at the top of the timing sheets and a new driver starting from pole position. Fabrizio Torri joins us now in the commentary box. Fabrizio, congratulations on that. That was a really impressive effort. You've got to be very happy to be starting from the front.
Good evening, all. Yes, it was a great session, quali session. I gave it all, to be honest, and I knew I could do very good, and I did. But I have to face reality because my opponents have all some ballast. So yes, I'm happy, but the guys behind me are very, very, very fast, and I have to thank the team Abi Racing for the opportunity to join this championship, and I have to thank the organization, the admins, and Rich Hayden that is always present and always available to all the problems, and all the guys behind this great group and great community.
Well, thank you very much, Fabrizio. We're really happy to have you here. It's always nice to have new drivers on the grid, especially quick drivers. You obviously are pretty quick. You started the season well. You're getting faster with every round. For those of our viewers who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been sim racing? What sort of stuff have you done before?
Okay, I'm an old guy. I mean, not so old, but in the sim racing scene, I'm an old guy because I started back 20 years ago. But yes, only in recent years I managed to give some more time to sim racing, and I really enjoy driving and try to do even better every time. And yes, at the start of the championship, I wasn't very sure because I subscribed a bit late, and I haven't had time to try the car and to understand the car. And now it seems that I'm finding myself more comfortable with the car, with the setup, and how to drive it. So I look forward for the next races.
And this race as well, I'm sure you're excited for. You're starting from pole position. That's the perfect place to start, but it's not going to be an easy race, this, is it? What's the game plan going off into that first corner?
Push. Push at the limit, and let's try to defend, because I know if Jack Smith is going to overtake me at the first corner, it's going to be an even harder race for me. So I'll try to stay on top and the first position, and I try to do my pace and minimal, less error as possible, and let's see what happens.
Excellent. Well, Fabrizio, thank you for joining us. We'll let you go and prepare for the race, but congratulations on that first pole position, and best of luck for this first race.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for the live.
Thank you very much. It's just full of positivity today. This is what I'd like to hear. So Fabrizio Torri then, starting from pole position for the first race. What a nice guy, Jack. Isn't that refreshing? It's a lovely community here at the VRRC. It really is. And I think Fabrizio is going to be a great addition to the family.
Yeah, I've never been so flattered after, and I wasn't even doing the interview. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? It's sharing the love, which is nice. It is nice that we have such an appreciative grid, and I think Fabrizio is certainly taking his opportunity in the limelight to try and forward that on. And yeah, we wish him all the best for the race, because you never know, we could end up talking to him again at the end of this one, couldn't we, Andy? Well, or he might be a little bit angrier. We're not sure. We haven't gotten quite into the racing yet, but I think he seems to be a very quick addition to the championship, and I think a lot of drivers enjoy that as well, because it can get a little bit samey when you're racing the same people over and over again. We like to spice things up and throw new names into the mix.
Exactly, and he is quick and definitely has the potential to win races, has the potential to win this race. What I'm interested to see is what his long run pace is like, because it's all well and good going out there and banging in a couple of really quick qualifying laps. But as we've discussed, tyre management, that's going to be really key in this one. The high temperatures, these long, high-speed corners, that left front tyre on the Hyundai is going to take a real pounding. And his plan, it seems, is to push from the start. Well, that might work for a while. Will it work for 20 minutes?
Well, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? But we've already mentioned that it's difficult to overtake round here without slowing everybody up. Whether Jack Smith will understand that, I mean, he's a very experienced and good racer himself, as we've seen many a times. I'm sure he'll probably understand that the best opportunity potentially will to see if Nicky and Kyle start fighting between each other, and then Jack and Fabrizio can drive off into the distance and settle in and last 5 minutes. Yeah, there's lots of variables that we got going on here, but before we go into it, a bit of a shout out to the likes of Craig Curtis and Lee Morgan in 9th and 10th. I think we mentioned as we went into that ad break, potentially Lee Morgan's best qualifying in 10th position, the one that we can remember anyway.
Yeah, it's his first top 10. Craig Curtis, I would have to go back a little bit further because he's been with us for a couple of seasons now, I seem to remember. But yeah, definitely Lee Morgan's first top 10 qualifying efforts. That's really good to see. So it seems like Mugello's one of those circuits maybe that just... It's a bit of a wild card, isn't it? It just allows some drivers maybe to really excel where they haven't been able to previously. It's going to be a fascinating race, this. Can Jack Smith continue this winning streak, take a 4th victory from 5 races and extend his championship lead? Or will we have a new name on the top step of the podium? It's almost time to find out. 20 minutes of action here at Mugello gets underway. Very even start initially, it seems, from both of the front row drivers, but the second phase of the start for Jack Smith sees him launch the BMW out in front. So Jack Smith gets the advantage. Torri, though, immediately on his toes to try and come back round the outside into San Donato. That's not quite going to work. So Jack Smith, I think, will retain the advantage. Torri is going to have to be careful here because Oliver Gibson's trying to slip up the inside as well. But the next turn is a left-hander, so it's Smith who leads the way. Fabrizio's second, but no, Oliver Gibson keeps on coming right round the outside. And just like that, Jack, it is a DK Power BMW 1-2.
Yeah, no, it's shocking, isn't it, really, that we didn't really remember the fact that although the balance of power has been applied to the BMWs, that doesn't really apply to the start, because that rear-wheel drive is still an advantage off the line. You're never going to take that away. It's just the laws of physics. So the BMWs have really got themselves up there. Oliver Gibson with a fantastic move into second place. Torri's still in third, but Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvis, well, I said they might start falling over each other, and that's exactly what happened. But it's Oliver Gibson who's really stolen the show there from the third row of the grid, slotting through the middle of Kyle and Nicky and up to third and then overtaking Fabrizio. What a start from him.
Incredible stuff. So up towards the sort of second half then of the opening lap, there's contact there. That was, I think... Craig Curtis and Andy Dorman, wasn't it, getting together? So Andy Dorman was sideways but saved it and actually didn't lose a position. So that was a pretty good escape from him, really. Joel Lask now trying to buy into the fight as well, as Craig Curtis there in that beautifully liveried Astra manages just about to hang on despite that little tangle that he just had with Dorman. Dorman then jumps on the hybrid, and we are seeing some hybrid usage in parts of the circuit where I didn't necessarily expect it, and maybe that's what's allowed Fabrizio Torri up the inside of Oliver Gibson for second place into the final turn. Torri wants to get on with this, doesn't he? You can see Jack Smith getting away. He's into second place. They all jump on the hybrid button coming out of the final turn. But for the time being, at least the BMWs are split.
You say they've all done it. Andy Dorman hasn't, and I'm surprised he's not dropping down like a stone, to be honest. Maybe he's just waiting. Yeah, he is waiting. Yeah. I said that you can time it differently depending on where you are in this straight. It's so long, and he wants to go into the first corner with the speed, as Oliver Gibson was lunging up the inside to take second place, and I think himself and Torri are going side by side still. Going through the turn 2, though, it's going to be Torri's holding on to it with Nicky Taylor giving him an assist by lunging one at the inside of Oliver Gibson.
A very, very wise man once told me that the cars in second and third would battle in this race and allow the leader to escape, and that is exactly
that man more.
Exactly what's happened, isn't it? Jack Smith, 1.8 seconds, 1.9 seconds now up the road because they keep tripping over each other for second. Now, the question here is whether Fabrizio Torri, now he's broken back into second place, is going to be able to get away from this group and chase after the leader. Remember, he was a 10th or so quicker in qualifying. He's going to need more than that now. He's 2 full seconds back as they drop down into the Arabiatas for the second time. Nicky Taylor crucially coming through into third as well, with Oliver Gibson 4th, 5th then for Carl Felver, 6th Carroll, 7th Dorman, 8th Curtis, 9th Joel Lask, and Lee Morgan, Jack, hanging on to the top 10.
I was noticing that, you know, Lee Morgan, he's been overtaken by Joel Lask, I think, but a few of the drivers have fallen down. Josh Martin is absolutely capitulated. Oh, we've got a Rich Hayden, a wild Rich Hayden has appeared as well. His internet seems to have come back online, which is quite nice for us. So he is here. I don't know whether he started the race late. I don't know even know if he's on the lead lap, but yes, he is on the lead lap. So he must have joined the grid right at the back, which is quite nice to see him. He didn't manage to qualify, but he is here now. One of the driver who I've just mentioned will not be very happy is Josh Martin in 18th position. another night to potentially forget for him. But Jack Smith does lead the way, 1.7 seconds, as we now watch Nicky Taylor hunt down Fabrizio Torri.
Well, 1.6 seconds becomes 1.5 seconds. It was 2 seconds half a lap ago. So Fabrizio Torri is noticeably quicker than Jack Smith, but is he going to have to take too much out of his front tyres to catch Jack Smith? Remember, the rear-wheel drive BMWs, they do overheat the rear tyres a bit, but this is very much a front tyre limited circuit. If those front tyres have gone away, that's really going to slow you down around here, and that's not really a concern for the BMW drivers. It's going to be a fascinating race as we move into the middle part of it. 2 laps down then, and the next battle that seems to be forming is the one for 4th place. Oliver Gibson with a bit of a train forming behind him now. Andy Carroll and Andy Dorman very close Carl Felvers, Andy Carroll and Andy Dorman very close behind, and Carl Felvers, we know, is not bashful about making a move. Is he going to have the pace though to find a way past that BMW? Down the hill they come towards us, and Oliver Gibson just doesn't quite seem to have the pace to get away with the top 3.
He doesn't know. I was just about to have a look at see who was the fastest driver. It's Nicky Taylor currently.
Yeah.
Fast lap is 1 minute 54.2, 2 tenths quicker than Torri, and about 6 tenths quicker than Jack Smith. Oh no, sorry, Jack Smith's 1:53. Wow, okay, that's so quick. I actually just assumed that was 1 minute 54, but no, Jack Smith is by far the quickest driver. Apart from that, Carl Felvers and Nicky Taylor are going pretty well.
Well, he set that lap time on, I think, lap 2 when Torri and Taylor were battling behind him. So now that they've sort of settled in, they are lapping a little bit more quickly than the race leader, and that gap continues to creep down. Significant, though, I think, that Nicky Taylor is going with Fabrizio, so that gap is not a massive one. And actually, in the second half of this lap, Oliver Gibson starting to go back after the pair of them as well. We cut back to Paul Laramie here in 12th position. That is Nathan Smith ahead of him. Now, Nathan Smith also potentially on for his best result so far. It's his first season racing with us, a personal best so far of 14th, and he's running in 11th place, Jack.
He is. I've just noticed. Sorry, I'm always listening to you, Andy, but I did just notice that Rich's DNA. Yes, very well. But Rich's DNF. So all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, what's happening to him?" And I missed what you were saying. Now I do apologise. But for anybody out there who's wondering, Rich is currently somewhere behind that pit wall. Unfortunately, maybe disconnected again. His internet has been playing up and causing a bit of havoc because Torri and Taylor set purple sectors in that last lap, and Andy Carroll's going pretty well. He's overtaken Andy Dorman. They've swapped positions off the start. Carl Felvers again running in the top 5. Trying to think if there's any other sort of... Jordan Taylor is a driver we haven't mentioned at all so far today, and I've just noticed as I was looking for storylines down the grid, he is still in 14th place and doing nothing about it seems.
It really does seem, doesn't it, like Mugello is one of those circuits that some drivers are clicking with and some really, really aren't. People like Josh Martin, Jordan Taylor well off the pace, and yet you've got people like Lee Morgan and Nathan Smith and Fabrizio Torri further up the order, having by far their best performance of the season so far. So an interesting circuit, isn't it? It has proven to be a bit of a wild card at this stage of the season. 13 minutes to go. The lead gap now sort of hovering at around 1.3, 1.4 seconds. It's not going down at the same sort of rate that it was earlier on. Torri, though, is getting away from Nicky Taylor. That gap now nearly a second with Oliver Gibson starting to come back at him. We are focusing here on the fight for 8th place, though. Craig Curtis in the green, white and red VX Racing liveried Vauxhall, and it's the Phoenix Sim Racing Hyundai of Joel Last right behind. I know that Joel has got a lot of support in the YouTube chat from the Phoenix Sim Racing family, and they would love nothing more than to see him climb an extra position or so up the order.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame to see him that far down. He has had moments in the sun. I believe the GTV3 Championship went very well for him, and around that time we saw a lot of Joel Lask in touring cars as well, and it's quite odd to see him battling in that round about the top 10, but it's quite nice that we see other drivers really pushing forward. He is fighting with Craig Curtis, again, a driver that we haven't necessarily always talked about at the front end of the field, but getting a lot more time. He's improved a lot over this season as we see the two Andys going through in 6th and 7th, and Kyle Felvers having to think about battling with them rather than potentially going further forward, which from his perspective is not ideal. What I will say is I'm not sure how many hybrids they've used, but Jack Smith is starting to get reined in even more, isn't he? As Chris Blakey, and is that Jordan Taylor. Jordan Taylor just about clinging on to 14th place.
Yeah, this has not been a good race for Jordan. Just doesn't seem to have the pace, does he, really? And you're right, Chris Blakey is clambering all over him. But, yeah, well spotted. Lead gap was briefly under a second there. Jack Smith actually did a purple middle sector on the previous lap, and then he must have made a mistake or something in the final sector because Fabrizio took a chunk out of him in the end, and that gap continues to close. So even as we now move into the middle part of the race where tyre wear might start to become a factor, Fabrizio in that front-wheel drive Hyundai seems to be the fastest man on track. Chris Blakey here continuing to try and find a way past Jordan Taylor in the Toyota for Chris Blakey. In fact, he's in a Hyundai sandwich because he's got Jordan Taylor just ahead of him and he has got Reece Bell just behind. And Reece, in fact, is closing in on these two as they battle hard over 14th place. So it doesn't matter where you are in the running order, there's always a battle to be had, including this one for 5th place where another two Hyundais are close together. And this is Andy Carroll continuing to close in on Carl Felvis.
Yeah, as I said, Carl Felvis having to think more in the rearview mirrors than pushing on. But that's, I think, more credit to Andy Carroll, I would say, isn't it, Andy, rather than potentially Kyle not quite being on the pace, because he is on the pace. He's going pretty much just as quickly as everybody else. They've all delved into the 1 minute 53s now, at least all the top 4 have. Kyle maybe not quite so, because he's having to think backwards rather than forwards. Yeah, Kyle is going quite well. It's not an insult to him to say Andy Carroll is about to lunge him, because here comes Andy Carroll. It's a long way back, but it's a wide circuit going into that turn 1, and I think the camera angle actually flattered that a little bit more than I thought.
Yeah, lovely attempted move, but Andy Carroll not able to actually complete the manoeuvre and has to settle back in behind. The lead gap down again, by the way, towards the back end of that lap. It's the final sector where Fabrizio is so quick. He takes about half a second out of the race leader in the final sector alone. So that delta, that gap between the two of them, continuing to get fractionally smaller as we go through the laps at the front of the field. But at the sort of back end of the top half dozen, this battle continuing to rage between the Hyundais, and Andy Dorman actually now starting to close in as well, down into the Arabiatas, and the front of Felvis's car not really sticking as he would have liked there. You can see the front wash out slightly, carried a bit too much speed in, but manages to get off the corner pretty well. Now just ahead of them, Oliver Gibson on the tail of Nicky Taylor for 3rd place. So it's been a calm first half of this race, Jack, but it's got the feeling, hasn't it, of one of those races that's going to build and build in intensity in the second half to the point where we might not know where to look.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, to be honest. It's Smith versus Torrey, Taylor versus Gibson, Felvis versus Carroll and Dorman. It's, again, all these top 10 battles, all these top 5 battles, I should say, actually, really about to spice up. And I think Gibson, there you go. You can see Nicky Taylor starting to use that hybrid halfway around the lap. And he does pull away from it. He's not quite understeering. It's not hurting him anywhere near as much. But you've mentioned a few times, what are the front tyres doing? If he's doing that so much through the corners, that's just going to overheat and scrub more off the tyres. Oliver Gibson's car is going to be quite happy to sit there. And if Gibson is, waiting to use his hybrids, there's still 8 minutes left. And I reckon they've probably only got about 6 left in terms of the top 3 anyway. I think Gibson's just biding his time here. He's quite happy with his raw pace.
There's the on button, as is Fabrizio Torrey, who has well and truly reeled in Jack Smith now, 4 tenths between them, and so game on at the front of the field. This is starting to get more and more intense, isn't it? Round the right-hander he goes then through turns 2 and 3, or Luco and Poggio Secco. Do enjoy it when we go to an Italian circuit, then into Materassi and Borgo San Lorenzo, and then down the hill towards Casanova and Savelli. Some brilliant corner names, some brilliant corners, and some brilliant cornering from our resident Italian, Fabrizio Torrey, continuing now to pile the pressure onto Jack Smith. And we are getting into that part of the race where I thought maybe the BMWs would start to have an advantage, but maybe it's those balance of performance adjustments that have been made that are just pegging back that BMW not only on raw pace but also on long run speed. So Fabrizio Torrey sat in the wheel tracks, but keep an eye, Jack, on this Hyundai through the final sector. That's where he seems really strong, and that's a good part of the lap to be quick at, the bit that we're heading towards now, because it's the bit that leads onto the pit straight, and that realistically is where the move is likely to happen.
I'm a big fan of, though, before we forget about it, is the fact that we have done this balance of performance. And you've covered a lot of British GT, you've covered a lot of championships where bopping is a very common factor, haven't you, Andy? And it's always met with a bit of controversy.
Yes.
Weaken one guy, it's all very political. Oh, you got to slow us down, blah 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 blah. No, it was mainly like this has seemed to work a treat, hasn't it? Because the BMWs are still quick enough to lead this race and still potentially win it and qualify in the front row. But the Hyundais now have a chance that comes down to driver skill. And we know Jack Smith has a lot of that. As Fabrizio Torri, though, dives to the inside using all of that slipstream, does make his way up to the top of the timing tower. Going into turn 1 is the cut back on for Jack Smith. That's what he's going to be hoping. But I think Fabrizio Torri has absolutely nailed the apex. And he's got that, got the lead of this race again.
Well, very interesting there that Jack didn't bother defending. He sort of left the door wide open and invited Fabrizio through into the race lead. And that, I think, is Jack with his championship hat on. He knows that at the moment, Fabrizio is not a championship threat. Now, come the end of the season, he might well be. But right now, there's a bit of a gulf between them in points. There's also a gulf between these two and Nicky Taylor in third place in this race. The last thing Jack wants to do is defend, and allow Nicky to join in the battle, and Oliver Gibson as well. So if Fabrizio's quicker, let him through. Follow him behind, don't lose time to the cars behind, and then maybe the race will come back to the rear-wheel drive car to the end of the race. Remember as well that Jack's nearest championship rival, Elliot Daltonaire, is absent this weekend because he's away on holiday, and therefore he's still outscoring really everyone that he has to, even if he runs in second place to the flag. So much as we like to see drivers fighting tooth and nail for positions, Jack, it's not always the sensible thing for them to do from their championship perspective.
No, it's you would expect this sort of maturity from Jack Smith. Used to winning championships, hasn't he? And to be honest, that BMW won't be too fussed about sitting in second place. It will slipstream very well. If anybody is caught up to, sorry, I don't know what I'm trying to say. If anybody has watched touring cars in Britain recently, I'm not allowed to say the official name of it, that's why I got my words muddled up, but the BMW is extremely slippery in a straight line. It enjoys slipstreaming. It's very quick in a straight line and everything. I'm not sure how much that has translated over to the sim, but it looks like Andy Carroll is going for a move around the outside here instead, down a little chicane. It's going to be a late break going into turn 1 versus Kyle Felvers and Andy Carroll. Andy Dorman is interested in trying to mop up the pieces here, but it looks like Carroll ahead of Felvers, who's not going to give it up without a fight. He did defend. He did what Jack Smith didn't bother to do, and it's opened the door potentially for Dorman. No, he just gets it closed in front of him as Andy Carroll tries to find an alternative route around Felvers, but it hasn't happened.
Indeed, so this is a good battle list then for 5th place. Felvers, Carroll, Dorman, nose to tail. Carl Felvers' pace has really dropped off as the race has gone on. He was sort of going with Oliver Gibson and Nicky Taylor in the early stages, wasn't he? But he's dropped back now to the tune of nearly 4 seconds, and he's really feeling the heat from Andy Carroll and Andy Dorman behind. A further 2.5 though back to Joel Lask, who is 8th. Craig Curtis is 9th, and Lee Morgan just hanging on to that first ever top 10 finish, but he's got another driver behind him looking for his first ever top 10 finish in Nathan Smith. So that's a good battle to try and watch later on. For now, though, through the Arabiatas come the 2 Hyundais and the Ford Focus. The lone Ford Focus on the grid, I believe, is Andy Dorman, and he is keeping pace quite nicely with these 2 cars ahead of him. Dorman's best run of the season so far, this, and he will be hoping maybe to pick up the pieces if these 2 start really getting into each other.
I was half expecting him to throw one at the inside as they started having a little bit of a nibble, but he actually was a lot more mature than that, wasn't he, Dorman, and probably knew that, with 3 minutes to go, there's going to be other opportunities, better opportunities as well. Here comes Oliver Gibson. He's on the hybrid now, halfway around the lap. Not Nicky Taylor. Nicky had been charging through his hybrids as Oliver Gibson tried to go around the outside of the final corner. It's not going to be the best run for him, but it might still be better than Nicky Taylor, who's leaving him just enough room, Andy. Well, he was leaving him just enough room, wasn't he, until he ran him off a little bit. Oliver Gibson back on the hybrid. I think Nicky Taylor's ran flush out of them, and that's an easy move in the end, going down the home straight.
Yeah, that was a good effort, that, though, from Oliver Gibson. Fair play to Nicky Taylor, leaving him space around the outside. That's been a bit of a hot topic of conversation in British motor racing circles this week, whether you should allow someone to drive around the outside of you. But Oliver Gibson put his faith there in Nicky Taylor, and Nicky left him just enough space. Gibson had the drive and the hybrid, crucially, because Nicky, I think, might have run out of hybrids, has he, according to my screen? Yes. Oh, he's got one left, one hybrid left. So Nicky Taylor could be in some trouble here because Carl Felvers... sorry, no, the rest are actually some way back, aren't they? Because, as we mentioned, it's about 4 seconds back to this battle, which is now led by Andy Carroll. Andy Carroll's found a way past Carl Felvers, but then misses the apex slightly, heading through turn 3 there, and has to immediately defend, dropping down the hill then. Andy Carroll defending in places he'd rather not be defending in, but this has been a good drive from Andy, and a top 5 would be well deserved.
he was having to defend because Carl Felvers was using his hybrid actually, going down into that sort of midsection, which is a slightly strange area of the track to use it. But I suppose you've got to be creative, haven't you, when you're trying to force drivers offline and everything. Hasn't worked to his advantage, but with 1.5 minutes to go, you can expect that people will start getting creative with their hybrid usages, won't you? Because realistically, you can't use them in race 2. It's not like you'll have 22 in the next race or anything like that. So you might as well use them when you can. You just don't want to miss the apex and miss potentially an opportunity to overtake them. Because look at this, all of a sudden, Carl Felvers does miss an apex. Maybe his argument is to go for a later apex, but Dorman is looking closer to him than he is to Carroll.
Yeah, I think Carl's running out of front tyres, and I think that's why he used the hybrid when he did. He knew that if he waited till the main straight, Carroll would probably be too far ahead of him, and that's exactly the case. Look, Carroll pretty much out of striking range now. Felvers jumps on the hybrid quite early. Carroll waits a bit longer, gives an initial benefit to Carl Felvers, but then, of course, his hybrid will run out a little bit sooner than Andy Carroll's, and so he's not going to be able to challenge down towards the first corner. We're starting the final lap then now of our first race of the evening. Fabrizio Torri 1 second almost exactly clear of Jack Smith at the front of the field. Oliver Gibson a further 2.5 back in third position. Fourth, Nicky Taylor. Fifth, Andy Carroll. Sixth, the man on your screen, Carl Felvers, with Andy Dorman, Joel Last, Craig Curtis and Nathan Smith completing the top 10. So Nathan Smith ahead of Lee Morgan and ahead of him by 2.7 seconds. So I don't know if something's happened there to Lee Morgan, but it's Nathan Smith now who moves into the top 10.
Yeah, so Reece Bell's just overtaken Jordan Taylor. In fact, they actually keep overtaking each other. There's been a change. I think that's just a timing glitch, isn't it, on the left? Surely Nicky Taylor's not leading this race. I don't think he is. Anyway, as Carl Felvers back on the hybrid, again trying to put an enormous amount of pressure on, trying to use them all up, but it's not going to work, is it? It seems if Andy Carroll can just about keep his apexes and braking zones within about a metre, he should have this one cleaned up.
Indeed, he should. So up the hill we go then, out of Arrabbiata 2 and towards the right-left at Scarperia and Palazzo. And then they drop down into Correntaio and then the run home to the final few corners. And Fabrizio Torri is going to, well, it's not going to be a light to flag victory. He dropped as low as third, actually, into the first couple of corners, but fought his way back beautifully, overhauled a 2-second deficit at one point to Jack Smith, and looks as though he's going to claim this checkered flag by perhaps over a full second. It's been a perfectly managed race, this, by the Italian, and as he exits the final turn now, he will see the checkered flag momentarily and will become the latest winner here in the VRRC. A first-time victory for Fabrizio Torri, who flashes the lights and weaves in celebration as he takes the checkered flag here at home at Mugello by 1.1 seconds in the end over Jack Smith, the championship leader, second. And I tell you what, Oliver Gibson was coming for them there in the closing stages. He had some really good long-run pace, but in the end only has third place to show for it. Nicky Taylor was fourth ahead of Andy Carroll, Carl Felvers, Andy Dorman. Joel Lask comes home in 8th, Craig Curtis 9th, and Nathan Smith is going to come home in 10th position. So Nathan Smith gets his first ever top 10 finish at the VRRC in only his 5th start in the season. Here come Reece Bell and Jordan Taylor, and it's going to be Jordan Taylor 14th, Reece Bell 15th, and Josh Martin 16th. Now, if he can get his act together in race 2, as he, ironically, I suspect, celebrates 14th place, he might still be a threat. 16th place, that is, isn't it? Might still be a threat in race 2, because he's going to be starting right at the front of the pack. John Jones, it looks like, will have the pole position for that second race because Chris Blakey and Rich Hayden were laps down, but they were all, in the end, chasing Fabrizio Torri, who comes home victorious here at Mugello in the very first race of the night. We will be speaking to him and the other podium finishers in just a few minutes' time. Well, welcome back to the VRRC, our first race of the night complete here at Mugello. And well, it's the man who started on pole position who wins the race. But it wasn't quite that simple for Fabrizio Torri, who joins us for the second time this evening in the commentary box. Fabrizio, well done on the race win. But, well, you weren't leading into the first corner, were you? I guess that was always a possibility, though, with those BMWs so close behind.
Yes. Yes. The BMW were so fast at the first part of the race. I had to maybe manage more the tires because they weren't gripping so much. So I had to be patient and wait. And then I saw that I had the possibility, I had the chance to overtake Jack. By the way, his race was incredible with that so much ballast. I mean, it's a great driver, and I did it.
You did. You make it sound a lot easier than it was, because when you got back into second place, you were 2 seconds behind Jack, and I'll be honest, I didn't think you were going to be able to catch him. Were you confident that you would still be able to catch Jack and fight for the win?
At first, no. I'm honest. At first, no. I was just thinking that I was second, and that was the race. But then I did a couple of fast laps, and I managed to close the gap with him, and then I started thinking that I had a chance. And when I took his streamline in the long straight, yeah, I was able to pass at the end, and I said then I have to be consistent and patient, don't make error, and straight to the finish and to the win.
Well, you got the win. We're all really happy for you, Fabrizio. Congratulations on that race victory, and good luck coming from the back in race 2. I think this race might be a little bit tougher.
Yes, absolutely, definitely. And I don't know if I'm gonna win. I'm sure I'm not. But for me, this win is made my night. So it's okay. Wherever I finish the second race, it's okay. Congratulations to you for the live stream and all the guys in the race, because I think there is a very high level of racing here, and if you can stay with them, it's very enjoyable.
And very enjoyable to watch too. Fabrizio, congratulations on the win. Thank you very much for joining us. And let's hear from the man who he caught and overtook in the closing stages of that race, Jack Oliphant, about to catch up with our championship leader.
Sorry, I interrupted you there. Yes, two things really that are a rare occurrence tonight. It's the fact that, one, I get to talk to Jack Smith, and two, you got overtaken, Jack. It's amazing, isn't it? But how was that race from your perspective? Because you didn't look like you defended that move from Fabrizio all that much.
Yeah, no, I mean, start was good, but, you immediately get a smack in the face when you see him try to pass you again when he's not even in the slipstream. So I was like, all right, okay, that's how much straight line he's got. So as soon as he got past Ollie, I was praying that they battled for a little bit longer to give me a bit more of a gap. But yeah, down the straight, Fabrizio was, gone and away. So I managed it as much as I could. I think we were faster in the middle part of the circuit, but yeah, I couldn't get the straight line even when pushed to pass. It was a bit bonkers, but yeah, I'm actually really happy with the race, even though it's obviously not a win, but yeah, it's consistent points. So yeah, really happy.
We've spoken a couple of times about the balance of performance has been slightly altered on the BMW, which is something we don't often do in the middle of the championship. But you can understand why, I'm guessing, and it's still you're able to put in some good performances and really quick lap times because you were still on the front row with all that 50 kilograms of ballast on board. What's it like as a different car to drive?
It's Well, we made a change pretty recently today, actually, that made it a bit more like the BM we had at Brno, just a bit, heavier and wants to push a bit more rather than turn the corners. So it's just the same car, just a bit heavier. And but yeah, that's just you just have to work around the understeer, and that's what I've been teaching myself. I did about 130 laps of practice for this race just to get in there and get the laps on the board. So get used to it. What was a different car, but is now it's pretty good now. So I've got my eye in, and I feel like the consistent laps I did in that race were pretty good.
Just the casual 130 laps.
In
fact, it's not bad, is it?
A lot.
I can't imagine how much that would cost if it was in real life. But it'd be awful. But going into second race now, you're going to have to work a little bit harder with all that weight on board to try and pass some people around a circuit that is not that easy to pass around. Thoughts, plan? Is there anything in your head?
One at a time, pick them off, and we'll see what happens on the start. That's our best bet at the minute. Just got to watch out for Fabrizio coming down the straight near the end of it, because that's going to be a bit chaotic coming into turn one. But really looking forward to it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it too as well, Jack. Good luck for race number 2, and good luck for the championship.
Cool. Thanks, Jack.
See, that explains it. If you're only going to do 130 laps of practice, you're not going to win, are you? It's just not good enough, Jack. Come on, we expect more. Right, his teammate Oliver Gibson on the podium again. And Oliver, you had a bit of an up and down race there as well. Satisfied with a third place finish at the end of it?
Well, first of all, I want to say congrats to Fabrizio. That was a mega drive, and I want to apologise for the slight contact I made at turn 1. But any podium's a good podium. So I had a good start. I've worked it out now how to do it. I've studied Josh. His race starts from Brno, and so I know what to do there. And I had the pace. Just need to get that consistency nailed down now.
And if anything, your long run pace seems stronger maybe even than your teammates. Were you deliberately trying to look after the tyres in the early stages there? Because you did seem to come on strong in the final minutes.
I don't know. I think because I was just so bogged down after getting overtaken and that little incident. I was just I was trying to get myself focused, and then maybe I was a bit slower in it, and it kept the tyres in a nice window. So maybe that might be it. But no, it definitely helped.
Excellent. Well, however you did it, Oliver, it was a solid run. Good to have you back on the podium, and we wish you the best of luck for what could be a slightly more chaotic race too.
Yeah, thank you.
So Oliver Gibson then rounds out the podium finishers in our first race here at Mugello, and we now move on to our second race where John Jones is going to be starting from pole position, Jack, and we know that John isn't usually all that keen to move out of people's way, but keep an eye to that green and white BMW starting second, because Josh Martin, whilst he's not been the pace setter so far tonight, he does at least for this one have good track position.
He does, and he's got no one in front of him for that rear-wheel drive launch. That's going to be quite crucial, I think, for him. Whether or not he can hold on to it, I think he might have. He might enjoy the fact that John Jones will probably end up in second place coming out the first corner, and we know that he's pretty much impossible to get round. So that's going to slow the rest of the field up. I'm looking forward to it.
As am I. Round number 6 then of the VRRC Touring Car Championship here from Mugello. The red lights start to come on and we're ready to go racing again here then with John Jones and Josh Martin on the front row of the grid. Lights go out, away they go towards turn 1. Not the best of starts for Josh Martin, it must be said. Alec Iyengar and the other BMW getting away well, as of course are the DK Power cars from towards the back of the grid. But it is John Jones, I think, who leads the marauding pack over the hill. Here comes Iyengar at the inside. Martin trying to cover. Iyengar's going to go for the race lead. Late on the brakes. Martin even later sweeps around the outside of all of them. If he made the corner, he will be in the race lead. He did make the corner. Iyengar is off the road though. Contact from John Jones, and there's more contact. Jordan Taylor sideways. Jones stationary virtually in front of the pack, and this has got trouble written all over it.
Oh, John Jones, that is a capitulation of disasters there. A domino effect, unfortunately, for one slight mistake into 3 or 4 more. So he remains in third place, but that's just because no one else was able to keep it on the circuit around him. A bit of a shame for him, but Josh Martin with an absolute flyer around the outside. You're right, his first phase of the start wasn't any good, but the late breaks, the sweeping move to go around the outside was utterly stunning, to be honest. I'm sure even Dave can appreciate that one in the YouTube chat. Alok Iyengar, really unfortunate, because I thought he made a good move up the inside. He was brave with a lot of contact going into the first corner. He stuck to his guns. He got up the inside, and obviously, unfortunately, in that BMW any rear-wheel drive, rear side contact, you're going to be having problems, and that's exactly what happened to Waylock Iyengar. Into third place, though, I think is just about gone Lee Morgan. No, it's Joel Lask. No, it is Lee Morgan, isn't it? Joel Lask is in fourth.
Yes, because John Jones took a very adventurous line coming down the hill there through turns 10 and 11, and so he's dropped well outside of the top 10. But Lee Morgan, having got his first ever top 10 finish, now finds himself running in podium positions. We had Nathan Smith there fifth, having started mid-grid, so he's had a good opening few corners as well. What of those who were at the front in the early race, though? Well, Jack Smith is 13th place, Oliver Gibson is 10th, and Fabrizio Torri is only 15th. So Torri not having a great start. It's Gibson who's on the move here, Jack.
It is indeed. You say not a great start. They haven't even completed one lap yet, have they? So realistically, any move forward is not bad. Just avoiding contact is the aim of the game. Here comes Craig Curtis on the hybrid button. Oliver Gibson enjoyed the fact that he got ahead of him, but I think it's going to be short-lived. How can Oliver Gibson respond to this one? Is he going to make a fake Craig Curtis to go to the inside? Craig doesn't really defend it. He's sort of in the middle, not really sure what he wants to do. As Jack Smith completely lunged someone towards the rear end as Andy Carroll, wasn't it? A fantastic bit of staunch defending from Andy Carroll, but I think Jack Smith probably just about got away with the fact they didn't rear end someone then.
Dave in the YouTube chat taking a bow. There's Oliver Gibson around, right of it. Oh no, and Torri gets caught up in it. So does Rich Hayden, so does John Jones. Oliver Gibson with a big spin there coming out of turn 3. Didn't see how that started, but all of a sudden the BMW was pointing the wrong way, and over a slightly blind crest, nowhere for everyone else to go. Now that was Nathan Smith going slowly, but I think that's unrelated. He was ahead of Gibson through all of that. Lee Morgan is also in the pit lane. That's heartbreak for Morgan, who had been running in a podium place, but that was a big moment, and by the skin of his teeth, Jack Smith managed to avoid all of that. But what a shame, our race winner was involved and may have picked up some damage.
Yeah, and I thought that we were going to see even more people getting bumped off there, as Nicky Taylor can't quite get past Paul Laramie as quickly as he wanted to. Paul Laramie on the hybrid button, Craig Curtis behind them, Andy Dorman, who's used to try and pick up the pieces. It's all getting a little bit too close for comfort. I have to say at Brno, it was very good racing, wasn't it, in both races, Andy? It was always going to be a little bit more difficult here. It's narrower, it's less opportunities for overtaking. You can't quite go side by side. All the things we've spoken about so far tonight. Craig Curtis looking slightly up the inside. I think that's just going to ruin his run out the corner, to be honest. But it's always going to be a little bit closer. The action is always going to be a little bit more door to door. I think most people are just about keeping it sensible. We have seen some unforced contact, shall we say.
This doesn't look awfully sensible, though. 3 wide past the pits, and Nicky Taylor closing the door on Craig Curtis when he hadn't cleared him. That nearly ended in disaster. Paul Laramie that was, wasn't it? Curtis on the outside in the Astra, and he's super late on the brakes. He can't quite get the car slowed down. Andy Dorman part of this fight as well. But Nicky Taylor's driven well in this race, in fairness. He will have started about 5 or 6 places off the back of the grid, and he's now into the top 5 overall. It's Josh Martin who leads, whisper it, by 3.1 seconds over in second position. Reese Bell, who I haven't mentioned yet in this race, and Reese has just sort of kept his nose out of trouble. He runs in second place, Joel Lask third, Carl Felvers fourth, Nicky Taylor fifth, and everybody else in sixth place. We've got Craig Curtis, Paul Laramie, Andy Dorman, Andy Carroll, Jack Smith, Nathan Smith, all in a long line, and this is the kind of touring car racing we were hoping to see.
We're loving it, aren't we, to be honest? This is great stuff. No matter where you look on the grid, somebody's in the action. As Andy Dorman is right in the thick of it with Andy Carroll and Paul Laramie, Craig Curtis, Nicky Taylor. Josh Martin's the only driver who's really got a bit of breathing space. Rich Hayden's 26 seconds back, I have to say. That's quite a lot of breathing space, unfortunately. Fabrizio Torri, though, is the man who's currently in last place. Winner of race 1. I don't think we're going to be speaking to him after race 2, unfortunately, because he is such a lovely man to talk to, and he always congratulates us on the live stream, which I think is very sweet, Andy. But we won't be speaking to him after this one. We may well speak to him later in the season, hopefully.
Yes, be grateful that we're not in charge of the BOP, because that Hyundai would have about 50 extra brake horsepower heading into the next round of the championship. But yeah, he's going to have some work to do to gain some ground up the order in this one. But Josh Martin, 3.3 seconds up the road. Things suddenly looking a little bit better for him. He seems to have unlocked some extra pace in this race. There are cars behind him going quicker, but he has that starting point, that big advantage in the early stages. With 14 minutes still to go, though, anything could happen. And Reese Bell actually putting in a decent lap that time. He was only about 4/10 slower than the race leader. Some good battling going on further back here still. Andy Dorman super late on the brakes in the Ford Focus. Too late, actually. Sort of missed the first apex. And now comes under threat from Andy Carroll, whilst here two BMWs, both of which have been pointing the wrong way at one stage in this race. Alok Iyengar and Oliver Gibson run side by side. And Iyengar, in the end, decides not to make life too difficult for our race 1 podium finisher.
Yeah, make him go for the harder line, but not really out-braking himself or anything like that, was he? It's a shame to see both of them go all the way down there, because I think Alok Iyengar would have had a good time at the front end of the field as well in this race too, especially fighting with the likes of Reece Bell, but it wasn't to be, was it? Joel Lask is doing a little bit better than we've been sort of leaning on. His race 2s have been better this season than his race 1s, that's for sure, but he'll be happy to be running in the podium places for the time being. Kyle Felvis is currently in 4th. Nicky Taylor is in 5th. And look at those two. They've pretty much bumper to bumper. And they've got about a 1.8 second gap, actually, to catch up to Joel Lask, who's a little bit closer to the likes of Reece Bell than he is having to look backwards. So, yeah, nice little driving and battle between those two as the fight rekindles at for about 5th position.
I love watching these onboard pictures though, because you can really see the way a driver has to kind of read the situation that's going on 2 or 3 positions further up the road. Jack Smith is attacking Andy Carroll, but he will be watching what Paul Laramie and Andy Dorman are doing further up the road. Those are the two running side by side. That could delay Carroll, and it could give Jack Smith an opportunity to attack when we get down towards Maldonado. Look there, Carroll gets blocked midway through the corner. Smith immediately on his toes to try and go to the outside. Couldn't quite manage to get the momentum, and actually, ironically, didn't read that situation very well and ends up coming out onto the pit straight slower than the 3 cars ahead. They are likely to be nearly 3 wide though when they do get down to that first corner. Here they go, Carroll to the outside, Laramie to the inside, Carroll's on the grass, and Andy Dorman finds himself pinched in the middle. Dorman clears Carroll. Can he clear Laramie as well? Not quite, I don't think, and there is now a bit of leaning going on, and just like that, Jack Smith joins in the party as well.
Yeah, he got away with it, Jack Smith, there, didn't he? Because the rest of them decided to fall over each other, and he's actually ended up getting past Andy Carroll for his troubles. So, Andy Carroll, you go for 1, you lose 2, unfortunately. But Andy Dorman looking up the inside now as well. It's a big lunge for that part of the circuit, and there's a lot of speed going through that chicane. Didn't come off, and I think Jack Smith will come out at the end of this lap, potentially having overtaken all 3 of them.
Yeah, it worked on the way in that for Dorman, but he was slow on the exit. And actually, Andy Carroll now gets back up the inside of Jack Smith. So Andy Carroll feeling pretty punchy in this battle, but ends up falling back behind again. Nathan Smith is catching them once more too. Smith had been running a bit further up the order than that in the early stages. He's dropped back, but he senses another opportunity for a top 10. Whilst we cut back to the podium places, Joel Lask has gone ahead now of Reece Bell, and Nicky Taylor looking to try and do the same thing. This is 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th places in your picture, and Nicky Taylor looking to the outside now as they drop down into the right-hander at Corantayo, goes right round the outside of the Phoenix Sim Racing car. Is that going to work for Nicky Taylor? I think it just about will. Reese is going to try and come back at him now as they turn through the Biondettis, but the Honda goes through, and Carl Felvis now will be keen to try and follow him.
He will indeed. It's all about racecraft now. It's always a big sweep towards the inside. A big lunge from Joel. Who is that? Is that Joel Lask? Reece Bell. It's Reece Bell. Of course it is. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong timing screen. Reece Bell looking for a massive lunge and going 3 wide potentially again. What the bet's on here, Andy?
Yeah, I think it's possible, although it looks as though maybe Reece has not quite got the momentum to do that. So Taylor goes through. Felvis goes past. Felvis actually could get 2 places in once. And actually, what do I know? Because here comes Reece back up the inside of the pair of them. Those two try to work together, but it didn't work. And Reece Bell super late on the brakes. Can he get it back again? Brilliant racing this for 3rd position. He wants to get both the Phoenix Sim Racing cars onto the podium. It's not quite going to happen. Nicky Taylor just manages to fend him off. Reece Bell is up for the fight.
Josh Martin and Joel Lask are absolutely loving life as they see a battle on the timing screens going on for 3rd place. Here comes Reece Bell versus Carl Felvis. I think Nicky Taylor may well get away with this one. Reece Bell ends up jumping over the curves. Carl Felvis gets ahead of him, and I feel like Nicky Taylor is going to get a nice little bit of breathing room now as Craig Curtis joins in the fight to try and overtake the Phoenix Sim Racer for that 5th position. Here is our race 1 2nd place man, but championship leader, Jack Smith, who still hasn't negotiated himself through the 2 Andys, and then Paul Laramie. He's currently in the middle of Andy Dorman and Andy Carroll, but he's really not having it all his own way.
And these are the kind of situations that make a championship leader sweat a little bit, aren't they? Because he's battling with people who've got nothing to lose. They're all enjoying this battle between the three of them as well. And suddenly, the BMW sort of inserts itself into the middle of it all. And one false move from any of them here could be Jack Smith's undoing. He's got to be careful now with every move that he tries to make. Ninth place is still decent points, valuable championship points. And yes, it would be nice to move a bit further up the order, but it would perhaps not be worth getting tagged into a spin, because then, okay, drop scores come to your rescue, but it's very early in the season to be having to rely on those drop scores. Through the left-hander at the final turn they come then, and Paul Laramie's queue of cars behind him continues to run pretty much nose to tail. Now Laramie, interestingly, not jumping on the hybrid. Those behind him are, though, Jack. And, well, this could mean they get even closer together by the time they reach turn one.
I was wondering if he was just waiting to get that extra speed going into turn one. Yeah, there we go. He was back on it, but it's Laramie versus Dorman. Dorman on the outside, wasn't able to get it done. And Carroll at the inside of Jack Smith. I wasn't really looking at those two all of a sudden. And Jack Smith being forced out of it. He's going to have the inside for turn two, of course. But still, it's just time being eaten up. And that means he's not been able to go forward. This weight that he's certainly got on this BMW is hampering him something horrid, isn't it? He's still inside the top 10, but this is exactly the sort of thing we wanted out of the weight system, out of the ballast system, that reverse 2 grids shouldn't be that easy to carve your way through. And I think Jack Smith is finding that is all of a sudden the case.
I think even by Jack's sort of admission, his winning margin in race 2 from the very back of the grid last week at Brno was perhaps a little excessive. And so, yeah, this is absolutely right. It's not supposed to be easy to come from the back, and you probably shouldn't really be able to come from the back of the grid to win race 2. No one really told Nicky Taylor that, though, because he was just off the podium in race 1, and he's in the podium places in this second race. He's catching Joel Lask. Worth keeping an eye on that a bit further up the road, whilst we quite rightly focus on the championship leader, Jack Smith, who's got a real battle on his hands. He's quick through this part of the circuit. He mentioned that in his post-race 1 interview, didn't he? That BMW good through the mid part of the circuit, but really its one weakness now is this long pit straight, which we're going to be at in a few moments' time. He's on the inside, gets a bit sideways after contact there with Andy Dorman, has to bail out of it, and almost ends up with Andy Carroll up the inside as well. And that was really no one's fault, just a bit of door handle bashing there that nearly saw the championship leader losing control.
I reckon it's been a while since Jack Smith has really been in a fight like this. Obviously, we don't know what else he does sim race-wise. But in terms of VRRC, he hasn't had this kind of intense battling where he has to concentrate on 2 drivers ahead of him and 2 drivers behind him now, because of course Nathan Smith is caught over to the back of this little battle. They've been holding themselves up too much for a long while, but it's very entertaining indeed, and hopefully he's enjoying it as much as we are, as Andy Dorman just gets ahead of Paul Laramie now and goes to the defensive move. Jack Smith almost rear ends the Honda of Paul Laramie for good measure as well. And I think if you're Nathan Smith, you're probably loving this, aren't you? Watching all of this go down and, you know, thinking 6 minutes to go, anything could happen here. He can get top 5.
But yeah, because Nathan's not slow tonight, is he, at all? This is the best we've seen out of him. Jack Smith going for a very small gap up the inside of a very defensive Paul Laramie, who was always going to turn into the corner there, whether Jack Smith was there or not, but he's now understeered out wide. Smith back up the inside. Carroll will try to come with him as well, and Jack Smith might finally have unlocked the door and broken through the defences of Paul Laramie. He's into 8th place, but that's about the hardest that Jack Smith has ever had to work for an 8th place, and his overtaking might not yet be done, because Andy Dorman only a second further up the road, and he's very much going to have his sights set on the Ford. Meanwhile, we come back to the second place battle between Joel Lask and Nicky Taylor. Nicky Taylor has well and truly caught Joel now, and the Honda driver is on the hunt to try and take second place.
I just about opened my eyes since you said we would come back to another battle, because I was absolutely terrified that was all about to go Pete Tong, as I think that's John Jones who jumps out of the way. Nicky Taylor versus Joel Lask is starting to heat up in the final 5 minutes, and I'm sure there are certain people in the chat that won't like me saying it, but there's a lovely 5-second gap, isn't there, between the first place and the second place battle right now, without mentioning names. It's looking like that this is the closest fight we're going to have to the top end of the race, and it's looking like Nicky Taylor's got some decent pace about him, doesn't he? Joel Lask is slightly struggling, I would argue, to get the overall pace out of that car, but Nicky Taylor's loving it.
Better showing, though, from Joel. More consistent showing tonight than we've seen from him so far this season, where he might have one good race in a night, but then one bad one preceding it. He's defending nicely that second place for the time being and fends off the attack there through the first corner from Nicky Taylor. Back to Andy Carroll, who has got... in fact, yeah, he's fallen behind... No, hang on. What's gone on here? Jack Smith is 8th. Yeah, so Carroll's got past Laramie is what's happened. So Jack Smith is still 8th, but Carroll into 9th and going after the BMW driver. They're all still chasing Andy Dorman, but they are slowly starting to reel him in 10th by 10th. So Andy Dorman's 7th place, not all that secure just yet. Shout out to Craig Curtis and Reese Bell, by the way, both having a good battle there for 5th position just up the road and on course for a good result for them. And that was Nathan Smith with a very aggressive attempted overtake on Paul Laramie.
I reckon someone's been watching Jack Smith a little bit closely there and thought, you know what, if he can stick it on the white line, I can stick it on the white line. Yeah, different part of the track, unfortunately, and I think Jack Smith was more tactical than actually going for the move. Nathan Smith potentially learning that the hard way, but luckily both of them coming out was slightly unscathed. Here goes Nicky Taylor looking for the outside move. No, and if I'm not mistaken here, Andy, I don't think Nicky Taylor is churning through his hybrids as much as he was in race number 1. I could be wrong. I can't quite see them. It's all a bit pixelated, unfortunately, for that much fidelity. They are both back on the hybrid now to try and take some kind of advantage, but I think they're being slightly more conservative going into the last 3 minutes.
Well, he has some left with 3 minutes to go, which is better than race 1. So, yeah, I think you're right. He's also got a much better run through the final turn, jumps on the hybrid nice and early, and realises this is his opportunity to get past Joel Lask, who only now goes on the hybrid. This will be interesting. So Taylor clears him, but Joel Lask going to have a good chance to get back in the slipstream here, get that hybrid button pressed down, and maybe attack and get into turn 1. There's no maybe about it. Goes to the outside line, and Joel Lask will try and sweep around the outside of Nicky Taylor. That's not going to work through San Donato, though, although Taylor runs very wide through the middle of the corner. Lask gets the switchback, but he's on the outside into turn number 2, and so Nicky Taylor does manage to get past him. So Joel Lask and Nicky Taylor, who I think are on the same number of hybrids remaining, are continuing to go toe-to-toe for this second place battle. But look at who's closing behind them. Kyle Felvers may be about to be knocking on the door for a podium. They're going to have one more lap left after this one, and this could soon become a 3-way fight.
Yeah, I think Carl Felvers has had a really solid evening, hasn't he, really? It's sort of flown slightly under the radar, had a good battle in race number 1. I don't believe there was much contact between him and anyone else. I don't think we've seen any contact between him and anyone else so far in race 2. Obviously, we haven't seen every single little battle, but I think Bruno, he raced very well, very clean. Here, it seems to have flown under the radar and getting some good results as well. So, yeah, well done to Carl Felvers. As long as that continues for the next 90 seconds, it's been a very successful evening for himself, and it could get even better because he could end up on the podium here as Joel Lask has really dropped away from Nicky Taylor and is right into the clutches of the HFT driver. There he is, in fact, Carl Felvers, and I think Joel is going to be in a little bit of trouble here. It's going to be a massive defensive drive now for the next 2 laps.
Yeah, Joel's car showing all the symptoms of a lack of front tyre, isn't it? It's not changing direction very well. He's slow off some of these long corners. And Carl Felvers using the hybrid there, actually. He's used it there a couple of times tonight, I seem to recall, to try and get alongside into the final turn. That doesn't work, and then he immediately gets back on the hybrid again to try and challenge up the pit straight. Joel Lask has only one more hybrid usage left, and he might be saving it for the back end of this straight. Then across the line they go. Felvers in the slipstream, not yet able to get past, but he does now pull to the outside line. How late on the brakes can Joel Lask be? This, remember, is for the final step of the podium. Neither driver wants to give way. Felvers sweeping round the outside line. Has he got the grip? Yes, he has. Carries the momentum up the hill, gets the inside line for turn 2, and I think he's going to go through, but Joel Lask is not going to give up the fight just yet.
No, he's crawling all over the back of him, isn't he? He's enjoying this battle, but at the end of this 20-minute race, Joel Lask doesn't want to see a podium going away from him just yet. He needs the points, and it's the reverse grids that he's going to get them from, it seems, in this championship. Carl Felvers is taking that away for the time being, but on the final lap of the race, I can only imagine they've got 1 lap left, and here goes a move at the inside. Joel Lask, can he get it cleared? I think Carl Felvis is just about fending that one off, but wow, oh wow, what a brave move. Great racing respect there, I'd say, from Carl Felvis, leaving in the ribbon. Here comes Joel Lask once more, Andy.
Oh, at that time there is contact. Felvis through the gravel. That's a bit of a shame because that had been brilliant racing up until that point. And now here comes Reese Bell. Reese Bell back up the inside for 4th position. And Carl Felvis not down to 5th. Well, he's not going to be happy, is he? Let's be honest, Carl Felvis after that one. And, well, we shall let the stewards discuss who was at fault. But the first bit of side-by-side racing between the two of them was wonderfully, wonderfully clean. And unfortunately, it did eventually end in some contact. So Reese Bell might yet inherit a podium here if he can keep Felvis behind, fired up Felvis behind, going into the final corner. They head into the final turn, but out of the final turn for the final time is coming Josh Martin. Josh Martin comes to the timing line to claim the victory here at Mugello, and that is his first race victory in the VRRC for quite some time. Second place is going to go the way of Nicky Taylor. Joel Lask is going to come home in 3rd, just about ahead of Felvis, ahead of Bell, ahead of Curtis Smith, Dorman, Garrel, Laramie, all pretty close together. But that was a truly fantastic race behind, a truly fantastic drive from Josh Martin. And now some of those who had dramas early on limp across the line. Laramie 10th, Nathan Smith 11th, Kenny Press 12th position there, ahead of Oliver Gibson with Chris Blakey about to come through in 14th. Jordan Taylor a really off night, unfortunately, in 15th, ahead of Fabrizio Torri, who had a pit stop after the race 1 victory to sort the damage out on his Hyundai, and the race 1 winner will come through in 16th position and the last car on the lead lap. Well, lots to dissect after that. We'll be chatting to our podium finishers, I should say, in just a few minutes' time. Well, that was quite the race, wasn't it? Lots going on in that one. And, well, we will momentarily be able to chat to our top 3 finishers in that race. A dominant victory in the end for Josh Martin. His first on-the-road win, would you believe, since the final round of not the previous Touring Car Championship, but the one before that. We have run 2 complete championships since Josh Martin last won a race on the road. He did inherit a win in the GTV3 Championship at Monza after a Carl Felvis disqualification, but it has been quite a long time since we spoke to Josh Martin as a race winner. He's had some podiums, but hasn't stood on the top step of the podium, we believe, for something like 8 months. So it's a very warm welcome back to the top step of that podium for Josh, who joins us now in the commentary box. And Josh, it's about time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is about time. I had a nice simple race, to be honest. I've not had one of those for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, that really was pretty simple, wasn't it? Beyond the run through the first corner, where, by the way, 10 out of 10 for commitment round the outside on cold tyres. You must have had some confidence that the drivers on the inside were going to leave you some space there.
Yeah, I kind of, again, my start wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be. And John got a good start, to be fair to him. And I was kind of just a bit behind him going into turn 1. And I thought, well, my only chances are around the outside. So there was plenty of space. I braked where I thought would be the normal point, and John braked earlier than I expected. So, yeah, I gave him room on the inside and hung it around the outside. And then I was free from there.
you've always struck me as a bit of a confident bloke, but does it knock your confidence at all going that long between race wins? Because we all know you can do it, and particularly in touring cars, we kind of expect you to be near the pointy end. So it must be a real relief to finally get an on-the-road race win again.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me or affect me at all, to be completely honest.
I'm trying to drum up a bit of a storyline. Yeah. Josh, go with me.
I've just been like recently. I've just every race. I always seem to have some issue, some technical problem. End up getting involved in someone else's incident, and I just can't seem to catch a break at the minute. And again, qualifying like today, my qualifying wasn't great. I should have been further up. I had the speed to be further up. But again, didn't get the lap, misjudged where other cars were, so I didn't give myself enough room, and ended up 11th. And then obviously race 1 was a disaster. But kind of by lap 2 of race 1, I was kind of already thinking of race 2. To be completely honest, my focus had already switched to being back up at the front. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to win again, and the cars had a slight change as well going into this week. So I've been struggling quite a lot of it in practice, actually, just trying to get my head around it. But I feel that race was good. It was almost like a test session. I was playing with brake bias the whole time, and I felt by the end I had a really nice race brake bias. So yeah, it was good.
Excellent. Well, maybe it really was as easy as it looks then. Josh Martin turning that dominant race victory into a bit of a test session, and hopefully that's going to propel you on to many more victories as the season goes on. But for now, Josh, it's great to have you back where you belong. And best of luck for the next round. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Hopefully I'll have a few more before the end of the season.
That would be good, certainly. So Josh Martin victorious then in race 2 here at Mugello. Second place in that race, though, went the way of Nicky Taylor, did it not? I think it did. Whoever it is, they're going to be speaking to Jack Oliphant right now.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's Nicky Taylor, but I have made that mistake before, as we all know. Nicky, I'm going to say congratulations on second place.
Yeah, that is right.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, thank goodness. It's because you weren't in the thing. We'd forgotten about it. Okay, yeah. A brilliant second race. There's been that much going on in that race too that you end up sort of forgetting a few things. But your race was extremely exciting, especially with the likes of Joel Lask, sort of about 2/3 of the way through until you could eventually get past and drive away with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I got up to where I did when I did. I just kind of seemed to make my way through and tried to just pick my way through the carnage. But yeah, I got up to where I was, and then Reese put up a very, very good fight initially to keep me at bay from Joel. And then I managed to try and get past Reese, and then the minute I was catching up to Joel, I knew it was going to be hard because Joel he's hard, but he's very fair. So it was a hard battle, but that was clean as hell. So I can't be too disappointed. But yeah, I managed to get past and just then tried to pull away for the last 2 laps, and I was lucky that Kyle was kind of next to Joel, so they kind of like kept each other at bay, so I could kind of pull that gap. But yeah, Josh, by the time I got up to where I was, Josh was long gone. So yeah, it would have been nice to have possibly another 5 minutes to see how much I could have closed the gap. But yeah, I'm happy to come away with a 4th and a 2nd is quite decent.
I was going to say, you will have mounted a great amount of points there, and without giving too much of the championship table away, obviously we'll come to that in a second, you have jumped a fair few places. So is that sort of something now that you've seen the BMWs getting slightly, let's say, more competitive with the rest of the field? Do you start actually looking and thinking, okay, we actually might have a chance here?
Yeah, I think once it happened, or once I first tested on Mugello on Monday, I noticed I was relatively quick compared to what I had been, and I noticed the BMWs have been pretty much back to how they were the championship before, where they were level on pace, pretty much. So I think it's going to be very tight. There is obviously a lot of rear-wheel drive heavy tracks still left, with Barcelona being the next one, being quite rear-wheel drive heavy, but yeah, just got to power through, and I think with the 2 drop rounds as well, it's going to help because my first round was appalling by my standards, and Bruno was all right, but yeah, we've got the 2 drop rounds now, so we should hopefully be able to claw some points back on Jack.
Well, at least you enjoy the 2 drop rounds. Me and Andy have a right headache trying to figure it all out from the season's end. But Josh, Nikki, congratulations on a great second place. I'm going to hand over to Andy before I mess it up again.
Who finished third, Jack?
Oh God,
any guesses?
Joel Lask, wasn't it, on the road at least?
It was, yes. Joel Lask, third place finish. We do pay attention in these races, dear viewer. I promise you. Joel, congratulations on third place, and well, a pretty punchy final lap, I have to say. We really enjoyed watching the battle that you had there with Kyle at the end. Did you enjoy being part of it?
Oh, yeah. That was tough, though. I'm not going to lie. Trying to battle Nicky and having to battle Kyle as well. It's a bit of a tough one. I still need to have a look at the replay and see what happened. I don't know if it was a bit of lag or something like that, but we're having a cracking battle. I enjoyed that.
Not the first time that you two have traded virtual paint, it must be said, but we as viewers really enjoy watching you two getting together out on track, because you're both, I think, drivers of quite a similar sort of mindset, aren't you, really, where it's kind of, if there's a gap, if there's a chance to make a move, you'll go for it. And in touring car racing, especially on a track like this where it's tough to pass, that's kind of the mindset you've got to have.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, me and Cole were sort of on a similar pace. Nicky was half a second quicker than us, so I know when it came to him, it was a case of just holding him up as much as possible. But I knew he was going to get past. But with Kyle, we were sort of neck and neck pace-wise, so it was good fun to battle with him. Give it another lap or so, though, might have been a different scenario, and he might well have had me. But it was good battle. I enjoyed that.
And nice to see you have a pretty consistent night, really, as well, because you've been a bit up and down this season. Obviously, Magnica, poor qualifying in race 1, but then really good result in race 2. Brno was a struggle as well. Is there anything in particular that's sort of been holding you back? I know you mentioned in the past you're not getting maybe as much practice as you might like, and given how competitive the field is right now, that can make a big difference.
Yeah, I'm still not getting that practice, which is the main thing. I think also as well, everyone's got quicker, and I just haven't. I had quite a bit of ballast last round as well, which was really tough. Just didn't do well with 40 kilos, down to 20 for this one, but I was going to go up again for the next one. But just getting accustomed to the tracks. These are tracks that I don't really spend my time on. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But practice, I guess.
Well, let's get some practice in then for the next round, because it looks like there's still potential to take something good out of this season. Joel, great to have you back on the podium, and hopefully we'll speak to you again next week.
Awesome. Everyone, cheers.
So they were our top 3 finishers, then our podium finishers from our second race here at Mugello, which certainly produced some of that typical race 2 action that we have certainly come to expect and enjoy. Right then, let's see what all of this means for the points. Now, I will warn you, if you were paying attention at the start of the night, you'll realise that the points table you're about to see bears little to no resemblance to what you saw at the start of the night. Jack Smith, for example, has about half the points that he had when we showed him at the start of the evening. It's not because there's been a snap vote to take away about 50 points from his championship lead. It's simply because we're now factoring in those wonderful drop scores that we all love having to calculate as the season goes on. So we've had 3 rounds of the championship. There are 2 dropped scores. So this is everybody's current best score of the season, because we're essentially deleting their 2 lowest scores and going with their best week. So Jack Smith's score was from last time out, I seem to recall, at Brno. Nicky Taylor's, I suspect, was tonight's. But it was still 14 points fewer than Jack Smith scored a week ago. And so that gives Jack the points advantage. Following me so far? Nicky Taylor second. Fabrizio Torri, therefore, jumps into third place. Now, having said that he wasn't really a championship threat to Jack Smith, we might have to now start revising that assessment a little bit. Joel Lask, fourth place in the championship. 1 point only ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Oliver Gibson, who are tied for 5th. Then it's Carl Phelps, Andy Carroll, Josh Martin, and Jordan Taylor. So the quirks, let's say, of the drop scores there, Jack, meaning that Jack Smith actually isn't as far ahead as he probably ought to be, and people like Josh Martin, who had a good second race tonight, not really benefiting from it, because the first race being a poor result means that becomes a dropped score, and so actually the second race victory doesn't do a huge amount for his championship tally.
Yes.
Is the right answer.
Yeah, no, I think I am following it. Yeah, I think Jack Smith as well, he's obviously got a very good scores to drop back on. The likes of Torrey and Taylor need pretty much perfect seasons from now on, don't they, to have any sort of opportunity catching up. That's still the case. But they do have now a better opportunity, given that everything seems a little bit equal, and it seems to have gone very well in this particular evening. I have to say as well, the driver of the round and the fan of the round are being announced. The driver of the round is, we're giving it to Fabrizio Torri after a brilliant race one and an even better pole position and race one interview, to be honest. We were just sharing the love, and we love that. So, yeah, big fan of that. And for the fan of the round, we'll have to wait until after we've done the what's coming up on VRRC, because we're going to run through that very quickly now. Time it. I'm going to try and do it within a minute. So, what is coming up on VRRC? Well, we have a time attack, Mugello Park in the BAC Mono. Fantastic track car around Mugello, which I've never actually driven, seen in real life or anything. I'm sure, Andy, is it a good track?
It is.
That's good enough for me. So we're going on to the next one. The fun race is coming up. There is cash prizes for the time attacks, and that runs for 2 weeks. Fun races. It's the Supers versus the Caymans. I think this is one of the first multi-class, multi-car fun races we've done for a while. We're starting to get more and more ambitious, aren't we? Around the circuit to Spa-Francorchamps, a track that pretty much everybody knows, and 2 cars that everyone who's in the sort of motorsport world will enjoy driving as well. Fantastic rear-wheel drives between them, and that is on the 3rd of September at 8 p.m. And you don't need to be a member to join in either of those, the time attack or the fun races. If you want to win prizes in the time attack, you have to be a member, but you can just join in if you're not a member. Just sign up in the link down below. And I don't think we've got much else to talk about. This is when Lewis gives me another graphic to talk about. That's about it. I'm saying that's within a minute. Andy, take it away.
A minute and 3 seconds, I'm afraid. There's time to be shaved from that. Hit a few more apexes, and you might just be able to get under the 60-second bracket. But yeah, not bad at all. I didn't want to interrupt you to explain what a great track Mugello Park is, because I didn't want to ruin your 1 minute target. But yeah, great circuit. That perfect one for a time attack. Perhaps most famous for being the place at which Paul O'Neill made Phil Bennett crash into the podium truck in the pit lane a number of years ago. Head to YouTube for further information on that. Right then, yeah, good stuff. Lots going on as always here at the VRRC, and we look forward to bringing you in to all of the action. Right then, that is it, I think.
Fan of the round.
The driver, fan of the round, yes, fan of the round. And this is exactly the point in the running order that Lewis painstakingly puts together for us to ignore at the start of every round that we were supposed to be mentioning it. The fan of the round, he says, desperately scrolling back through the chat, is Charlotte Vickers. Charlotte Vickers, congratulations on fan of the round for some lovely support in the chat, not just to the drivers that you were supporting yourself, but also to the rest of the grid. And I believe that Charlotte has well and truly signed herself up now to the Fabrizio Torri fan club, which is really great to see. So congratulations, Charlotte, on that. Congratulations, Fabrizio, for driver of the round. And I think that does now mean that we can start to wrap things up here this evening and say thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you again in a week's time, where we'll hit the halfway point, would you believe, of this Touring Car Championship. Barcelona in Spain for the next 2 races, rounds 7 and 8 of the championship, before we head to the Red Bull Ring in Austria, Zandvoort in Holland, Donington Park in the United Kingdom, and Hockenheim in Germany, where it will all conclude on the 4th of October. So nearly halfway through, one clear championship favourite definitely emerging, but as we saw tonight, Jack Smith is beatable. The first week this season that he hasn't been able to stand on the top step of the podium. What will Barcelona have in store for us? We'll find out, as will you, if you join us at the same time and the same place in a week's time. For now, though, thank you everyone for joining us. A big thanks to Jack Oliphant, Lewis Edwards, Rich Hayden, the whole of the broadcast team for helping put the show together. We will see you again as we head to Spain in a week's time.